Good evening, everyone. I'm writer coach Tony, and today I'm doing my second book review. I've done a previous book review. It was on Judy Dench's autobiography, and furthermore, it took me a long time to do my second book review. I've read several books already, but anyway, I'm going to do one right now. During the quarantine, I read this one. This is Anton Chekhov's selected stories. No? Anton Chekhov's selected stories. It's an old book which I found. It's my sister's. My sister bought it in 1996. No? I don't know where she bought it. So this is a 24-year-old book in our bookcase. Its price is 104 pesos. No? That was in 1996. 104 pesos is about 2 US dollars. Right now, books I think like this would most likely cost the same, especially now with the quarantine and people are at home. The economy is down, so people are not really buying books. No, so most likely you'll find this in a second-hand bookstore. So, okay, I chose this book because I've heard of Anton Chekhov through the play The Orchard. You know, I saw it, and I was intrigued by it. So when I saw that we had a copy of this book, you know, I decided to read more about Anton Chekhov. So he's a Russian writer, last century in the 1900s, and then um, he was a short story writer, no? And he also did plays, no? So there are many things that when you read books, read other people's work, especially like a great writer like Anton Chekhov. A whole world opens up to you, and in this book he has about I didn't really count, but maybe around 20 short stories, no? 2, 4, 6, no, 30 short stories. Out of all those short stories, only one really caught my attention, no? Really, swept me off my feet. Because Chekhov has a certain way of writing which is so different from what you have to understand that our generation right now, we only have like 10 or 3 seconds, what do you call that, our our ability to pay attention is only for 3 seconds. So if that is not met in is something like his stories do not meet that, um, we're easily distracted. However, um, in this book there was this one short story which really struck me. It's entitled "The Kiss." The Kiss is a short story by Anton Chekhov, and it's a story about this bumbling soldier who was invited to a party, no? Because in old Russia there were aristocrats, no? So this aristocratic family invited this regiment of soldiers. So the lead character is named Maria Bovich. No, I'm not going to mention the names because Russian names are so difficult. So I remember it was Ria Bovich, and so he's in the party. Nobody notices him because he was um, totally unattractive, boring. He looks boring. Doesn't speak well, and he's not as dashing as the other soldiers in his regiment. So he's just staying on the sidelines, and then he asked to go to the bathroom. So he goes to the bathroom. It's a big house, I think. So he goes somewhere there, and he goes to the bathroom, and when he comes out, he passes another way. He passes another way, and he realizes he's lost in the house, in this big house. So he finds himself in a dark, I presume, a living room, and then before he knows it, a lady, comes to him, puts her arm around his neck, and kisses him passionately. And then the lady realizes that she has kissed the wrong person. She shrieks and then she leaves. but that single moment, that kiss, lingers in the mind of
That was
Ryabovich,
easy. But
and
maintaining it, that was
that lingers in the mind of Ryabovich, and that basically becomes the takes hold of him, you know. So when once 1 second his life was so dull, he was this dull person, nothing to look forward to, and then with that kiss, he transforms into this person who becomes passionate, and the whole world opens up to him. He sees things differently nowadays. Everything again is bright and beautiful for him. So, in other words, his life becomes more exciting after he gets the kiss, you know. So anyway, he tells the other guys about it in his platoon. Oh, somebody kissed me last night, and then the other guys just shrug him off like, just another. I'm sure it was a fat woman, or I'm sure it's just in your dream. So every single person in his regiment does not even acknowledge what he experienced. In other words, they were putting him down, maybe because of how he looked. No, they couldn't believe that a girl would kiss him. I mean, a girl among the aristocrats, in the family that invited them, would kiss him. But for Ryabovich, it really happened anyway. So he was treasuring that idea in his mind about the expectations of what things could be, because eventually he would get married, and then meet a woman who would be as desirable as the woman who gave him that kiss, and it really brightened his world. So anyway, the months dragged on, and then the regiment had to go back to that same place, no? That house where the kiss happened, and as expected, the expectations from Ryabovich was so high, and he was so excited. Oh my God, I want to find out who that woman is. I am going to look at all the women in the family and find out the woman who kissed me. But like Chekhov's other stories, um, it's really depressing. Reading him can be depressing because, um, it's like there's a candle here giving you hope of something nice, and then he just snuffs it out. That's how his writing is. He plunges you into despair. Um, in my thinking, it's just being. I think he's just being realistic. He's not putting your expectations up. It's not a Disney movie. Chekhov, if he became a writer now, would never write for Disney, because in his world he sets you up so high and then you crash down. No? There are no expect. He he crushes your hopes. So what happened to Ryabovich is he never meets the girl because there's no one in the house when they come back. The aristocratic family was not there. Maybe they vacationed somewhere else. It was never said. But um, Ryabovich's hope of meeting the girl of his dreams, will never materialize. And then this hope that he was holding on tightly is just snuffed out, and he feels sad, and he realizes maybe my life will just be ordinary. I'll just be this ordinary girl, plain girl, and I'll never be able to experience that kiss again. So that's how the story ends, and that's representative of how Chekhov writes. No? There are no frills, um, and it's so realistic. Um, he just says it as it is. No? He doesn't um, magnify things to make it seem so wondrous, but he just makes it so simple. He takes you so high, and then he lets you crash down. He doesn't. He just allows the characters to be, and he doesn't. He doesn't introduce these characters meet, um, make difficult decisions in their lives, or make bad decisions, but he doesn't introduce anything spectacular to the that the characters have to fight or anything, but in the end they have to deal with their own miseries. No? What are the characteristics of his work? Number one, it showed a picture of what rural Russia was in that time. This should be around the 20th century, 1800, sorry, 19th century, the 1800s. Um, from the point of view that Chekhov writes, I think he was he did not belong to the aristocrats, so he was not Tolstoy's level aristocrat socially. He was just I think he was a son of an ordinary provincial person, because the point of view of his writing is always from that point of view. No, somebody from the province. The settings are all in an estate where the characters are not the bosses, but they're the ones, running the place. No? They're the peasants, the serfs. He does talk about rich people, but these are rich people who are not aristocrats, but who are businessmen, tradespeople, people who run businesses. But unfortunately, they have no sign. These people have no. These characters have no um, scruples, moral scruples. I mean, these are businessmen. He has a story here called 3 Years. It's a story about a dad, a very controlling dad. I have a feeling he's writing this, a description of Chekhov's father. It might be, but the father is not very fatherly. He's very strict with his sons. He even practices physical abuse, which I think was allowed, in that time in Russia. You don't really feel love in his stories, It's like forced love. It's like people get married in his stories. I remember there's a lap tech who marries this woman, but it's not out of love, but out of because they're similar. They have a similar social upbringing, or she was the only woman left, the only sister left who was unmarried, so he had to marry her. So there was no passion, there was no love between the two, and you see that thread happen in his short stories. Um, it's effed up relationships between families. Here he has old people who mistreat their grandchildren. It's actually shocking to find. No, what I like though is that he shows a Russia. He shows the people of the ordinary people of Russia were very religious. I grew up when I was growing up. I saw Russia already as a communist country, so I thought communism they had no religion. No? Religion was not allowed to be practiced. So I thought Russians were atheists when I was young. But I realize now that Russia has a very, very deep spiritual history. And you can find it in this book. No? Story after story shows how spiritual the Russians were. The Russians during that time, during Chekhov's time, how they left it to God for everything. Since most of his characters were poor, they held on to God a lot. Because just like us Catholics in the Philippines, every time we encounter difficulties, we leave it up to God. So that's the thread that ties the Russians to the Filipinos, our deep spirituality. And you can find that a lot in this book. This book also shows a lot of short stories where there's a lot of abuse against ordinary people. And the bad thing is the ordinary people accept it as status quo, as expected. They're supposed to be mistreated by their superiors. So it's very sad to read, but Chekhov, I think, just leaves it as it is. He doesn't throw in a hero who will change society, who will change Russian society. He just describes the situation as it is. So you have here a story of a father who's very rich, but only gives his employees a pittance, no? Who allows them to live in very inhuman places, no? Inhospitable, inhuman rooms, no? Crowded together. So while they live in wealth and grandeur, so um, it's a Russia that's very interesting to me because this is not the communist Russia I was raised on, that I saw, no, through media, through books, but this is a different Russia, no, the Russia of Tolstoy, and it does gives you a glimpse of why or how communism was able to take root in Russia, no, because I think the mistreatment of the poor people, um, because here it's really rife, you know, they're really the poor are really there's no hope. If you're a poor character here, there's no hope for you to become, you know, famous, great, rich. No, you stay there, you die there. No, so it's a very sad life. So I'm not surprised why Russia became communist and they had to chop off the heads of the aristocrats. Maybe they deserved it, the aristocrats deserved it, but well, what happened historically is it plunged Russia into the communist ideology, which I also do not like. You know, I prefer democracy. So anyway, um, if you want to know Russia during that time, if you're interested to see a society where women even had no rights, you know, they were just their characters. They were allowed to study, some of them, but most of them were just waiting to get married, no? So it was representative of that time, and the women here are not even attractive, you know, the way Chekhov describes them, they're not even attractive. So but even then, this book is a good read, especially even if you're not doing a literature lesson or literature degree. It can be read for leisure, no, because it will introduce you to the deep spirituality of the Russians, their ability to carry the burdens of their lives, no, all their lives in burden, unable to express their true feelings. It's all here, no. It's their feeling of how to deal when your hope is snuffed out. It can be depressing to read, so I suggest you read it when you're, you know, a bit happy. Otherwise, you know, you might do something to yourself. But it reflects more of what Russia is at that time, and it's a beautiful portrait of their country, a beautiful portrait of their people. These short stories come alive in my imagination. They come alive with their clothes, the way they treat people, and it shows me an era which is so different from the Philippines. But in a way, it is similar because we were also oppressed, no? During that time by the Spanish and the Americans. So anyway, thank you for watching my book review on Anton Chekhov's short stories. Um, if you want, you can grab a copy. It's a Signet classic. I'm sure there's some there in the secondhand bookstore. You can really buy the new edition of this book. Um, there's a lot of time to read now because of the quarantine. I hope you take advantage of it. Please follow me on my Facebook, my Instagram, and my Twitter. And then please subscribe to my channel, Writer Coach Tony. Thank you everyone for the time. See you around.